How can an entire society deteriorate and decline, not necessarily through war or a major catastrophe, but through a subtle, creeping change? The Egyptian film Alkaief brilliantly explores this idea. Released in 1985, written by Mahmoud Abu Zaid and directed by Ali Abdelkhalik, the film caused a sensation and remains memorable to this day. The surface story revolves around two brothers, Gamal, who lives for pleasure and Kaif, a state of altered consciousness, and Salah, a disciplined and educated chemist. However, the film delves much deeper than this superficial layer. It uses the concept of Kaif to address a much broader issue than just drug addiction. The film explores the insidious nature of habituation, becoming accustomed to anything, even if it's wrong. It highlights the gradual erosion of principles and the blurring of the line between right and wrong. Kaif, in this context, isn't just about hashish. It's a state of mind, a process of adaptation and acclimatization. The scene with the taxi driver at the beginning of the film playing a low-quality song and stating that his ears have become accustomed to it perfectly illustrates this point. This is precisely what the film conveys about society. We can become accustomed to the bad, to corruption, to any negative aspect, until it becomes our norm. This phenomenon may be occurring around us in various forms today. For instance, we might become accustomed to superficial content or inaccurate news, dismissing it without much thought. This is where the conflict between the two brothers, Gamal and Salah, comes into play, mirroring the internal struggle within society itself. Salah embodies science and principles, initially resisting the prevailing situation. However, Gamal, the street-smart brother, views the world from a different, perhaps more pragmatic perspective. He advises Salah to drown out the noise with more noise, essentially suggesting that he conform and avoid causing trouble. This implies to navigate through the current system. The turning point arrives when Salah, the chemist, discovers that the hashish Gamal consumes is adulterated and potentially lethal. This sparks a seemingly devilish idea in him to create a similar-looking, tasting, and smelling substance without the intoxicating effects. Perhaps it's a game or an act of revenge, but here a new question arises. Is it permissible to deceive criminals? Is it ethical? Salah, initially a man of principles, vehemently opposes this idea. But circumstances and pressures take hold. He wants to send his son to a private school but lacks the funds. He feels that the honest path is blocked. Gamal constantly pressures him, arguing that the entire country is based on deception and exploitation, that this has become the norm. Their dialogues are brilliant, revealing how need, pressure, and persistence can cause even the most principled individual to compromise. Sadly, Salah eventually succumbs, swayed by Gamal's arguments and the lure of money. He creates the counterfeit substance. Here, the film doesn't place the sole responsibility on Salah. It illustrates that society itself is susceptible to corruption. It suggests that it's not just the drug dealers who are bad. The private school scene, for example, where the headmistress accepts a donation from Gamal, whose source of income is questionable, to admit Salah's son, exemplifies this. This is a small example, but it shows how the environment itself can be conducive to corruption. The situation escalates. The fake substance becomes incredibly successful and spreads like wildfire, eventually reaching the major dealer. But he discovers that the substance is ineffective. Undeterred, he decides to exploit the situation further. He figures that people are already hooked on the appearance, so he'll add a small percentage of real narcotics to regain the effect and retain customers. Profit trumps everything else. He embraces deception, prioritizing profit over people's health. This leads us to the film's most iconic scene, the funeral. Salah sits, believing he's smoking his own safe concoction. But the cigarette contains real narcotics, unbeknownst to him. The moment he experiences the effects, he understands and he breaks down. He sees the depths to which he has sunk. He realizes that he's no longer just a man who created a substance to save his brother or trick hashish users. He has become part of a massive corruption machine from which he cannot escape. This represents the complete downfall. This scene encapsulates the film's entire message. The problem lies not so much in the drug itself as in our willingness as humans and as a society to accept corruption step by step. This is the true Kaif. The film's final message, encapsulated in Al-Banasawi's line to Salah, truly embodies this tragedy. He states, "I am just like the corrupt. You and the people accustomed them to the bad until they forgot the taste of the good." A statement that truly hurts, explaining how an entire society can gradually lose its compass, starting with something small, perhaps with good intentions, as Salah believed. The movie presents a remarkable journey from a seemingly limited idea to a profound commentary on ethics, society, and the corruption that quietly permeates it. Adaptation of society to negatives is the core of the matter. Although the film was made in 1985, if we consider the very last scene, the new taxi driver who was also beginning to get used to the new vulgar song that is playing, this makes us ask ourselves today, what are the forms of Kaif that we are getting used to around us now? What are the wrong or negative things that we may be embracing and considering normal and that are taking us down without us realizing it? It's a very important question. Perhaps each of us needs to look around and ask ourselves this question. What is our Kaif today?